because we do have wounds, and that is part of our mortal experience. But when we can help each other and lift each other and apply truth and actually show that love to each other and understand how to do that and to ourselves, then we raise the consciousness of the planet. And I just appreciate so much what you are doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. If you want to stay, you can stay on. So I'm waiting for one more person to join from India. Somehow they miscalculated the time. It's supposed to be 2:45 p.m., which is 3:15 in the morning in India.
Oh.
So they calculated to be 4:15, but they had Richard. Yeah. So I think they thought it was 3. So I think they're here. Ratan Shardaji, welcome to the show, Ratan Shardaji.
Namaste.
And so Nick Collins and Ratan Shardaji, Karen, you can listen in, okay? So, all right, thank you. So we will be here. And so Nick Collins, we start with you, and Nick was waiting for us in the morning as well before we started set up the show. So Nick, thank you for respecting and being enthusiastic in part of this panel. So we'll start with Nick. Nick, you have done amazing work in marine research. Amazing work you've done in marine research. And I really value your work, what you've done so far. And can you tell us how the world was united using your marine data?
Say that again, how the world
was united using your marine research, like what you do, the marine trade routes, ancient trade routes, maritime trade routes.
I see. Yeah. Okay, well, I spent a career in maritime trade, and a long time ago I did a history degree. So what I decided to do on retirement was make a history of maritime trade, which from beginning to end, from the Ice Age to 2025, in 3 volumes. So the first one, I discovered that really it's India that is the epicenter of maritime trade. And why is that? It's because during the Ice Age, Japan, northern China, northern Europe, Manhattan was all encased in ice. Permafrost was much further south. So the only area of the world which was vibrant was that stretch of water from East Africa through India, and at that time Sunderland and Modalu, which are now underwater. That was the great maritime highway, and that's where ancient civilizations developed and were the epicenter, the origin. And of course, right in the middle is India. It's the Indian subcontinent. And we don't know, because it was drowned, so much was drowned, we don't know how much influence the landmass of Sunderland, now a series of islands called Indonesia, had. Pardon me. But certainly India was part of it, and it's really demonstrated by northwest India, but also the Tamil lands of southeastern India. In the north, of course, we have this famous 7 rivers, which fertilized a huge area, far bigger than the contemporary Mesopotamia or Egypt. And this had a head start in developing civilization. So that by the time of the Indus-Saravati civilization, which accelerated development around 3000 BC, it was heavily engaged in exporting timber, but especially food, actually, to Mesopotamia, sustaining those civilizations. And so, and what did they get in return? That vexed me for a while. They seem to have a culture, an economy based on sheep farming and woolen textiles, and they also sent traders up into the Taurus Mountains in southern Anatolia, further up into Mesopotamia, where they got metals. And so metals seem to be what they traded with India for all those. There was also drugs came out of India and pepper. I don't know whether pepper was. It's archaeologically pretty well invisible, so it's difficult to know. But later on, we know that in the Roman times that a lot of the trade was in archaeologically invisible stuff, drugs and spices and so forth. It's not inconceivable that the same kind of products were being shipped into Mesopotamia at that time.
So if I ask you, Nick, like when you start drawing up the maritime trade routes from Asia, from India, how many points did it cover across the world?
I'm not sure I understand the question. How many points around the world from India?
How many trading points did it cover, the maritime routes, the ancient maritime routes?
Well, from India, it's East Africa, Persian Gulf, and Southeast Asia. At let's say 3000 BC, you know, and as in the Roman times, we can include China in that, I think.
So for viewers, he has a beautiful website. It's called maritimetradehistory.com, and he has done a wonderful work there. So I'm going to share that thing on the screen so you all can have a look at that, so you can see the research that he has done and published it. So is that right website? How maritime trade and the Indian subcontinent shaped the world?
That's the first book, which goes up to about the mid-8th century. Second book goes 700 to 1700. And the third book will come out early next year, which will be The Ascent of Maritime Trade, 1700 to 2025.
So in your estimation, how much was the volume of the trade in those periods, like up to 780?
That's an impossible question to answer because you know we don't have statistics on it. What we do know from the ancient port of Lothal at around 3000 BC when it was built, the dockyard could take about 30 ships of 60 tons or 60 ships of 30 tons, which in modern terms is the trifle. It's nothing. It's 60 tons is 3 small 20-foot containers today.
Exactly.
But in those days, I think that would be pretty substantial.
Pretty substantial.
And that port was trading primarily with the rest of the Indian subcontinent and the Persian Gulf into Mesopotamia.
Ratan Shardaji is joined from India, very respected author, and one of the earliest to join Sattology and promote Sattology all over the world. So Ratan Shardaji, so why do you think the history of colonies is lost? And Nick has presented data with a lot of data with the maritime trade.
Thanks, Aditya, and I give my pranam to Nick and Narasimhanji. My first reaction when he said that why a colony of history of colonies are lost, I thought about the reasons. I realized that there are different reasons for different natives. I will just let us say that, okay, I can talk about natives of America. I can talk about blacks. I can talk about Hindus. The major communities who lost their civilization as a memory, and also lost their history or history that is there. For example, what Nick says would not be accepted by the academics for years together. For example, what he said about trade routes. What happens when your itihasa is treated as a myth, or you're asked to treat itihasa as a myth, then naturally nobody will research it. You have gone all over the world about Ramayana and Mahabharata, and now people realize that there is some truth to what is written in the books. But still, this time we were told that all this is myth. There is no history of these people. Native people were, what I can say, uncivilized lot, who had nothing to talk about. So when the colonials attacked different civilizations, whether it's America, whether it's Africa, they came with the crutch of religion, and they're using the religion that you people are heathens, you people are no knowledge, you represent Satan and all that. They were converted, their souls were completely destroyed, they were dehumanized, and because of this, slowly the collective memory was lost. And when you are we are telling a lion cub that you are a sheep and you live with sheep, somebody is to tell the lion that you're a lion, you roar, you don't bleed. So when they're converted, they were co-opted, they were brainwashed, and it was so forceful that there was no memory left. And millions of blacks who were brought to America, they were also they were not allowed to have their names, they were not allowed to have their customs, nothing at all. If you use your native name, or you celebrated your native birthday as your own native custom, you would be punished. So slowly, and it happened to natives also, over a few generations, you lose total contact. That is the reason why slowly they became so weak. How do you write history when you have no knowledge at all about what you were, from where you came? I read poetry by a black poet, a lady poet from Africa who is now American. She's on the seashore and she cries, "Who am I?" So when you lose your own identity, how do you write our history? In case of Hindus, fortunately, we were too large. We were too successful a civilization. We fought back. We lost millions, but we kept fighting and we kept our civilization alive. So of all the people who lost their history, Hindus are the only one who still have the memory of their history, but that history was always claimed to be myth. So you had slowly those myths are coming up. In fact, our folk is the people who actually kept their memory alive, their history alive, and that is how slowly we are able to rebuild that history, which is uh, was not acceptable so far. We had people who were adopted by the colonials, and they were like coconuts, brown outside, white inside. So they copy pasted the same history which was given to them by British or other whites, and they were copy pasted and told us this is your history. So when you are not allowed to write your own history, naturally you follow the history which was pasted onto your mind. For 70 years in India after the independence, also we had same colonial historians who simply were slaves, colonial slaves of the West, who taught them what we were. And I think that is the reason, though, for example, Hindus don't lose their civilizational history or memory, but it was weakened to a large extent. As I said, when our history was treated as myth, naturally, who would write it? So history is written by the victor. But in case of India, we didn't forget our roots because we had somewhere or other paid huge price for carrying on with our traditions, our culture. We still have same traditions, same culture, same knowledge base, same Vedas which were recited 5,000 years back even today in the same tone, tenor, and that is what has kept us alive. But yes, writing of the history or acceptance of the history, as Nick would put that he has written a history which has to be accepted. So this is how slowly colonies are rising, people who are colonized are rising. But in case of others, there is no memory left. Now those natives who are being treated as you know, in some reserves like zoo people, and who are being treated as some exhibits. when you go to Amazon and you see them standing on the rock showing off they are natives, you saw what condition they have been put in. So I would say that when your memory has been totally bleached out, weeded out of your mind, use of religion, use of your sheer power, the memory is lost. But I think slowly there are some people who still have some memory, and it will rise, I would believe, and the Hindus are the ones who will lead this realization, lead this rekindling of memories, and that is when the other races will get their pride back, their identity back.
Thank you, Ratanji. My question to Nick is, Nick, what difference has your research made to the modern academic environment?
I don't know yet. I think there's a great deal going on within India. The middle classes are avidly reading and wanting, as the gentleman just said, to know about their real history, and I think that's great. And if my work can help that, good. But it's not only me. I mean, I, I think what my work is focused on maritime trade worldwide, from Ice Age to today. It's been hugely, in my view, underestimated what a driver this is to the narrative of the world. And, you know, the colonial experience of the 17th to 19th century in India was damaging. But it changed a bit. You know, the English East India Company people in the 1790s were fascinated by India, fascinated by its culture and its linguists, its languages. And it was William Jones at first discovered that Sanskrit was the forerunner of Latin, Greek, and Celtic languages, for example. It was a later strain, as the gentleman said, of overtly Christian religionist evangelicals that downgraded India's past, and it's coming back again now. So that's surely a good thing. There's a lot of history in, not only in India that has been misunderstood, and again, a lot of pushback is now happening in various lots of different areas, and it's been difficult. The Aryan invasion theory, I thought had been just about dismantled now, but I see that some even Indians are still peddling this nonsense. Actually, if it was Aryans coming in, invading from the north, why did India have such a vibrant maritime culture, as I tried to describe? It's all nonsense. But as I said, it's not the only bit of nonsense in the whole of history. In various areas, in my own country, we talk about the Anglo-Saxon invasions. The Anglo-Saxons didn't invade; they were invited in. It's another story, perhaps not for this forum, but it's these myths are terribly difficult to get rid of, partly because entrenched interests, and partly because innocent repetition of otherwise well-meaning people.
So, Professor Nick Collins, author, and Shardaji, Shri Ratan Shardaji, your different takes are actually connected. The native civilizations, their culture and their values point to their productivity and creativity, right? These are the goods and services that are up for trade. The best goods and services of value are now traded in exchange for whatever raw materials or finished products. Nick's research is really trying to figure out how different folks value that product, goods, or services, and that's where trade happens. The
Yeah.
exchange of value, in turn, is the payment. And in those days, I don't think the people of our land collected anything less worthy than gold. So gold was transacted inwards, goods and products were produced and exported outwards. And that's the nature of the maritime trade. I'm talking about pre-colony and pre-invaders. I'm talking about the quiescent state of the civilization called the Bharatiya civilization. Now, that's just the productivity part of it, because the philosophy that we believe in is never sit idle, always do something, right? And better yet, if you do that in the service of the supreme force, not in the service of the queen. It's not by appointment to Her Majesty, but it's by appointment to what you consider is the powerful force that runs the universe. And that's really the essence of why every Hindu wakes up in the morning and does something. And that captures the productivity, and that results in goods and services other than, the internal interactions in a land. And that is given a price. And that's what Alexander came searching for, is where did the gold go? If the Tellicherry pepper came from Kerala and went and changed the palates and tastes and cuisine as well as language of far distant lands, there was gold going the other way. Alexander came in search of the gold, and the British came in search of the same gold. Go ahead, Ratanji.
Yeah, just a small point to make. See, when we talked about discovery of India, who brought Vasco da Gama to Bharat? It was a Gujarati trader in Africa. But then the historians, the colonial historians, claim that Vasco da Gama had discovered India when he didn't even know the route. We had Columbus, who went all the way to America believing he has discovered India. So he called them Red Indians. So this strange, strange kind of approach, which is today seems to be laughable. This is what we learned all this time. And to add to Nick, you talked on maritime history. Now we in Western Coast in Maharashtra celebrate Nariyal Purnima. That is the day when the fishermen go to the sea. This is thousands of years old custom. Similarly, in Odisha, we celebrate Kartik Purnima when the the Hindus of that today put their small toy ships into the sea, remembering that this was a time when ships actually started. This is somewhere in October, started moving again from Kalinga to south and to north, and we were told they are silly customs because we were made to forget why these were there. The significance was lost. So when Aditya talks about Ramayana's various global places, he would be laughed off saying that you're chasing myths. So you have so many customs, so many traditions which link us, which remind us of our history. But due to the westernization of the mindset and you believing that these are all outdated customs, they have no meaning, we lost that part. But slowly that is what we discovered. That's why I said the kind of clothes we wore 5,000 years back, they're still worn. Vedas still recite the same way. And we talk of the Jambu Dvipa, we talked about long back. We talked about Bhugol, that earth is round, spherical. So this is what kept us alive. And this is what we were told that not truth. So slowly that is realization is coming up. So Nick's work is very important, I think. And that was how slowly that is to be accepted. So as civilization rises, its greatness is recognized. China never gave up its civilizational memory. That is the reason they rose much faster than other countries. I think that is what will change in Bharat also. I think that in coming times, even other natives for whom, for example, Aditya is working, those natives will slowly assert themselves, not in a negative manner, but taking pride in their identity rather than being made to believe that they were good for nothing people.
Nick, my question to you is more material facts. What were the goods being traded before 700, and what were the goods being traded after 700?
I think the goods being traded outwards were remarkably similar throughout history. Actually, we got the first detailed lists we've got are from the Roman period, and it's gold was going in. The Romans hadn't got anything much that India wanted apart from gold, and it worried the Roman emperors a great deal. But outwards from India, they got drugs, herbs, spices, pepper, timber, ebony. They got pearls, gems, and the Roman Empire lapped this up, especially in its heartland of Italy. And when
Nick, I'll just add here, for Americans, drugs is a very negative word nowadays. It's called medicinal herbs, right? That's what you meant?
yeah, spikenard and
Exactly.
all those
That's what
kind.
I meant. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and spices and so forth. So yeah, and I don't see that it can be much different before. In fact, I've made a kind of controversial claim that when I started by saying that what on earth had Mesopotamia to send to India, and the economy was based on woolen cloth and metals from further north. But that seems to me to be inadequate to satisfy India when they were shipping out what was to become the lifeblood of Mesopotamian civilization. So there is another controversy which is related in ancient history, and that is the pharaonic the origins of Egypt's pharaohs. Very briefly, when the archaeologists first went into Egypt, Flinders Petrie, a father of Egyptology, and excavated near Nikkara.
You can interrupt anytime you want, if you want.
Pardon?
No, I'm saying Ratanji wants to make a point. You can do it any time of the discussion.
That's okay.
Okay.
No. Carry on.
Go ahead, Nick.
And he found evidence, which I can explain if you want, but anyway, evidence that there was an invasion from a Mesopotamian state called Uruk, a very powerful state, through the Wadis, up the Red Sea, through the Wadis, and took over the Egyptian state, and eventually, within a generation or two, unified Egypt, and they became the pharaohs. This was widely accepted all through the 20s, 30s, and 40s. But in 1945, with newly independent states being created, there was a move, pure fashion in my view, to give more weight to the indigenous origins of each state. And so Petrie's theory, which was called the dynastic race theory, and got sidelined partly because race after the Holocaust was just an uncomfortable word to use. But in the last 40 years or so, historians and archaeologists are saying, well, actually, since Petrie did these excavations, more and more evidence is coming to light to show that Egypt was invaded, and by boat through the wadis. So if it was invaded, and this, imagine this is quite something. This is not taking a bit of territory adjacent to you. This is traveling a long way to replace the weak political authority that was then in Egypt. The question I ask is why, and I think I find it in maritime trade. They wanted the gold, which was then extracted, and the Phoenicians via the Levant, via the east coast of the Mediterranean, increased in value because it wasn't valued in Egypt because it was so abundant. Silver was more valuable, and so closer to India it got, the more valuable it got. And it seems to me that gold, which has been mentioned, was the reason. Is how Uruk and later Mesopotamian states paid for these necessary imports. And when you put it in a historical context, the Romans paid for gold. Vasco da Gama was ridiculed by the ruler of Calicut and said this. Wrote a letter to the King of Portugal. This is what I want, and he lists them. Top of the list, gold. The English East India Company had to pay in gold. So this is not. I don't think this is an outrageous theory. I can't find any written evidence, correspondence and saying let's invade Egypt for its gold, but logically, it seems to me that's the most likely, most plausible explanation.
Ratan Chatterjee.
Well, I think when you talk about what was traded, it tells us that actually we were the people who were selling the best. Somebody remarked the best of the steel. We were, in fact, shipbuilders for the world, and people asked Indians to build ships for them. And Sanjeev Sainal recently experimented with the ship, the way it was built at that time, stitch ship, not with the nails. And these kind of
I saw in
yeah,
Gujarat
so
when I went there. Wherever.
right,
Stitch ports,
right.
large ports. Yes.
Yeah, and he talked about maritime trade, and we know that we had a wonderful port in Lothal thousands of years back. And why it was never talked about, I do not know. We had channels, we had trade routes, and why they were never researched. So my complaint with our so-called historians is, that we never trusted what was already available. We simply copy-pasted it, never had any intellectual rigor, nor any urge to research. As I said, as in case of Middle East or in Africa or in America, they were totally, their thinking was totally curbed. They were made rootless. They had no base to start with. We had, but still we chose to follow the colonial path, and that is the reason it has taken so many years to slowly get these things coming out. And very few in the West, like Nick has done, have done that research. You talked about Aryan migration theory. The very people who talked about Aryan migration theory, they simply had not read anything. They refuse to accept any evidence even today. Why? They have changed their thinking from, or their proclamation from Aryan invasion theory to Aryan migration theory. So now they say, okay, there is no violence. Okay, there is no attack. And but they basically, everybody walked in. So in India is like a pasture land. Anybody can walk in and put in his tent. With that thought, now that is called Aryan migration theory. Nobody is ready to read the latest research. I do not know the reason. This colonial mindset, this slavery, is something that is totally, I would say, it flabbergasts me. Why there is no intellectual honesty? Why there is so much of slavery in the mind that we simply refuse to accept our own history. Now, when you more and more excavation is done, when excavation was done in Tamil Nadu, the local archaeology department, one of the best one, was not allowed to take the evidence, and sent outside to get it vetted. That is the level of our colonial mindset, that we refuse to accept what is in front of our eyes. and we have now skeletons 8,000-year-old. We have chariots available now in our archaeology, but even what is available was never accepted. So this Harappan civilization became a standalone event which had no link with past or the future. How can it be possible that there is no connection between past and the future, and is it a standalone event for some thousand years? Some people came and they lived and they disappeared. So unless we have that rigor, the intellectual honesty, it will not happen. Now,
Don't you
as I
think it's
talked of Middle
changing now,
East,
then?
it is so silly, but in case of Africa, in case of Middle East, in case of native land, their memories have been so totally been appropriated, so much totally been lost. How do they go back? If there is no path, I was reading recently, they have lost that path itself. How do they turn back? Unless there is some threat somewhere. See, Jews were able to reinvent their language because they were still left with a couple of, or maybe 4 or 5 people who knew their language, Hebrew. From there, they restarted everything. So when somebody from the native old religion, as called pagan religions of time, unless there is somebody who can go back and find some strand of that history, we will not be able to trace it back. Now, the Egyptians who created pyramids, there is no pyramid. There would be no Egyptians as far as we are concerned, or the world is concerned. There would be no civilization of Egypt. Now, we have to accept because it is there, but it is like a museum. The people who built those pyramids and put their kings there, so nobody disturbs them. Now they're being exhumed. They are being shown to the world. That is the kind of respect we pay to those people. That people who actually created those miraculous places to rest their souls and their afterlife today are exposed to the world more and more. Corpses are being dug up and they are being exhibited to the world. It is an insult to that civilization. So unless we start respecting civilizations of other people, unless we treat them as something very precious to the humankind, this is the kind of kind of, I would say, ham-headed history or a one-legged history that we will see. But that is what is changing, as you rightly said. But I think the due respect to that local civilization is a must. And Egypt is an ideal example where their history and their sacred memory is being trampled upon for some tourism instead of learning from them.
Actually, today morning we had a show, we had a session with all the Native American chiefs, and that we discussed that. So very interesting was there. So the evangelicals and the churches were writing Bible in their language to convert them. So that's the only document left, by the way, of their language. So they are relearning their
Yes.
language from those Bibles, actually rediscovering, and then trying to find the traces of the religion. That's what they're doing.
Adichie, language is one of the very powerful tools with which you
Absolutely.
kill the local civilization. In
Absolutely.
case of northeast of India, whether local script has been destroyed and Roman script is forced on them, and
Yes.
people who oppose were actually murdered
Yes.
because your language actually keeps you in touch with your past, with your culture, with your history. But when we destroy the language, you destroy the very link to your civilization.
Absolutely. The Roman, so India has a very beautiful script called Devanagari. And Devanagari script has been functional for way before any Roman script was invented. And the good thing is, it is surviving, it's thriving now. More companies or countries are using it in the research work as well. Imagine, just to let you know, in Devanagari, you can write the dog's bark as it is because every dog has a different bark, and you can do that. That's how beautiful the script is. Nick, coming back to you, so when you're doing your research, did you come across any scripts that were native indigenous that were used in the maritime trade?
Any scripts?
Language scripts, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Indus Saravati script, I think, has not been deciphered yet. But I don't think there's any evidence of this used in maritime trade. They used seals as evidence of goods in transit, of ownership of goods in transit. But the interesting, I just make 2 points. I'll come back to that point. The gentleman referred to Lothal, and this didn't arise out of nowhere. Quite right. And it was in 2012 that ports in the Gulf of Cambay were found, which presumably was the legendary port of Dvarka, and that this there were two ports on the then ancient river, which seems to correspond to the flood of 5600 BC or thereabouts, and the one of 9500 BC. So it's interesting, I think, that that the origins of this go way back beyond the 10th millennium, and then in Tamil literature, they also talk of two floods that destroyed their sangam. So the history here, it goes back way further in literature and maritime trade than has previously been recognized. Then to answer your point on the script, I don't know whether it's whether you know, but I think back in the 1930s, it was recognized that the script of the Indus Saravati civilization bears striking similarities to that discovered in Rapa Nui, used to be called Easter Island,
Yes.
which
I mean,
has,
yes.
you know Alice, right? Well,
Off the Chile.
Pardon?
Off the Chile coast of Chile.
Yeah. And people are baffled by this. It's not only, individual characters, it's just groups of characters. But it seems to me that before these flooding events, 5600 BC, then there seemed to be more of a unified culture, perhaps a Vedic Indian culture, I don't know. But it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that this script got there via sea or land, which is much greater then, and has been subsequently lost. I don't know. That's conjecture, but I don't know what you think about that.
So coming to the panel, we have last 15 minutes left, and Ratan Shardaji and Nick is there. So Sharad, Karen, and Shri, do you have any questions for Nick or Ratan Shardaji? Please go ahead.
Let me go first with Ratan Shardaji. He started
short,
off.
so you can get the maximum answers.
Sure. He started off talking about the last living civilization. And my question to him is, how and why wasn't it taken out by multiple invasions? Considering that we had the tradition of Shruti and Smriti. Because of the Shruti and Smriti, even if the written was destroyed, the memory and learning through rote was not. How essential was that to us, connecting those gaps and missing pieces of work?
Yeah, right. See, that's why Shruti or the hearing is very important, because that is the incantation, the tone, and the tenor never changed. The scientific activities became rituals. So what was actually scientific became a ritual, and then it was created this commit of orthodoxy, but kept it alive. And why Brahmins were attacked? Because they knew that they are the fountainheads of the knowledge. They are the one preservers of knowledge. Whatever kind of today abuse we do to the Brahmins, but actually scholars, I should call them scholars, because for Hindus, those who were scholars were Brahmins. They were not any kind of caste attached to it. So those people, they kept it alive, and that is the price they paid. And I think we never lost the spirit. We kept on fighting. The spirit of keeping alive and fighting even when you are killed, whether they were Islamic invaders and later British were, I would say, much more clever. while Islamists simply killed and simply steamrolled over the civilization, the sheer size of our nation, which people actually got exhausted. So by the time they reached Aravali, they had no strength left to go to south. That is why south is still carrying that huge Vedic civilizational memories and knowledge, which was not there in case of north, which was continuously plundered. But you still have Pandits in Kashi, you still have people in Rajasthan, people in Bengal who carried the tradition and knowledge system. They were hidden, they were manuscripts, they were burnt. We know about Nalanda, which was burnt for 6 months to destroy it. We know how Takshila was destroyed. So centers of learning were destroyed. But as we enclosed ourselves like a tortoise who is attacked, we were able to preserve. We got into our homes. We got those knowledge into our homes, and those homes carried on the rituals. So that is where even system of family inheritance and inheriting the knowledge became a very important part of preserving what we had, and that continuity was there all the time.
Question to Nick. Sharath, you had a question to Nick?
Yes, yes. So it's always great to hear Ratan Shardaji, Pranam, and Nick. We are all family here. So Nick is from UK, right? Aditya?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Nick, one of the questions regarding that is, in fact, two questions. You said you have written a history from the Ice Age till today, right? The naval history. I was just curious to know, because the oldest Roman history starts from something around 27 BCE, whereas Ice Age is 2.6 million to 11,700 million. So that's a huge gap between few hundred and thousand years to your entire Ice Age. So what was your finding regarding that? The second question is, see, we had the concept of the Jambudvip, which Ratan Shadaji mentioned in our Bhagavad Purana, where the entire continent was divided into 7 different continents. It was not based on the geographical definition, but more on a spiritual and the kind of people they are, right? Which we are seeing right now with all those CRT kind of thing and grouping of the people and the clash of civilization kind of situation going on. I won't go into the political side of it, but the relationship between Europe and Asia, we were on the same land. We are still on the same land, and 1/4 of the land is called Europe, and then the remaining the three part of the land is called your Asia. No geographical reasoning, no tectonic plate reasoning. Did you not face challenge in your naval history when you were plotting this, because there is no science here? You accepted these type of a logic for um, some kind of I don't want to say that, but there is no science here. That is and the last question, Aditya, sorry, one last question. During the Alexander's trip to India, there was a Seleucus who was given 500 elephants from Magad region, along with the people who handle this elephant. 500 people, okay, 500 people and 500 elephants were imported to exported to Europe. And when I correlate this with the Toba volcano after your ice age, and only 1,000 residual humans were left, and from 1,000 to 1,500 humans, the entire 8 billion people have been created now. So don't you see that the Roman will have those 500 Magad people in their blood, and the whole history should be seen from a different perspective? I think there are a lot of things which a new way to think, right? I'm not pointing any blame on anybody, but these are the findings which you are, or people like you should also think.
Nick. Yes, Nick.
I just want to add a point, because somebody made a remark in the here that Shivaji and the warriors actually stopped the invaders. I totally agree. I am talking the overall scenario. As I said, we continuously resisted. We had kings and queens all over India who continuously fought and resisted the invaders. So I'm taking a little longer look at the history rather than just coming to directly to Shivaji. Of course, there was I would go back to saying that there were Bappa Rawal who stopped for years together. But that is, those people are those who actually were able to preserve what we had. For example, if Aurangzeb spent 30 of his life, died in South, but could not conquer. And the daughter-in-law of Shivaji is one who fought for him for more than a decade. So we have that history. But this history is what has kept us alive. But this rebellion, or continuously, somewhere or other, having that resistance is what one piece or the other part of Bharat was able to preserve something. That's what I meant when I said, so I would not go, I would have happily talked about history, but I just kept it as a side piece to the overall history of how our colonial history tried to kill the local history and how finally some people are rising because we had that continuity with which we are able to relive our lives, rebuild our civilization, which others unfortunately could not because nothing was left.
Nick.
It's almost like a Hitchcock movie, right? There are a bunch of clues left, and it's for us to piece it together.
Nick,
so Nick,
ahead.
I don't know if there was a question for Nick in there, but go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, my expertise, such as it is about trade. It's not naval history, so it's a maritime trade, and I don't wish to get involved in Indian history because you know much more about it than me. I know about it from my research on the trade, but the Northwest India, fed by these 7 rivers, was the most populous part of the world. I mean, it's been estimated that 10% of the world's population lived in Northwest India before the drying up of the Sarasvati. So, I mean, yeah, we can go back and say that Indian history has been misrepresented, but more and more evidence is now there in front of the faces of these people that refuse to believe the evidence in front of them. So it's only a matter of time before everybody is going to be singing off the same hymn sheet, if you like, or reading off the same page. I think. I hope you agree. I don't know. Maybe you're pessimistic. I'm not.
I would like to punt this to Karen. It's only a matter of time before we heal.
Yes.
So,
I
thank you.
had a question.
Yes, go ahead, Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
I didn't know if I could ask Dr. Ratan Sharda. I'm fascinated by the way that the rituals and the writings were preserved in the South, and such as Nalanda. And I wondered if you could speak about how we can expand our perspective by accessing that information that has been lost for so long.
Karen, actually, you would need to come to India. You'd have to go to meet some acharya somewhere in hidden part or some small remote village in Kerala or some remote place in Chennai. And I'm surprised when I hear stories from, hinterland, the gurus who sit there or the wise men who sit there, who share their knowledge, who still carry on those spiritual healing the way they were in the long time back. See, the old medicinal people didn't ask you what is wrong with you. They took your pulse and looked at you and then told you what is wrong with you. So the entire medical science, it was so difficult from what people today do that I have stories about Ayurvedacharya looked at a person who was just 50 years back walking across the lane in the village, and he looked at him, told his wife, called her and said, don't give him any water when he comes home. He will keep on crying for water. Don't give it to him. Give him oil. And the person went on, crying and shouting at the wife, and she went and gave him oil, finally vomited. And he was saved from some poison. Now, how could a vet, they actually just look at the person walking on the lane and cure him? That is surprise. They cure you like that. And we talked about technology. I recently again went to Ellora caves. And those are fascinating. A cave temple built from the top over a period of 100, 200 years, 10 generations worked on the site. Nearly 300,000 tons of stone was removed. Ashwin Sanghi, in fact, has written a book, the Ayodhya Alliance now. He looks at fascination. How is it possible to break those rocks to such a precision? There are chisel marks, and how they were removed, where they went. So somebody has to actually go and research, and he created a fiction out of it, beautifully written. Do they have special metals? Do they special kind of compound mixtures which nobody knows about? Even the Vishnu Stamba in Delhi, we just fascinate about rather than thinking that how somebody could make it and from where did the compound come. They are there in the Rasayan Shastra books. So our books are much more researched now in West than we could because we never treasured them. We never actually, valued them. I know about a Gujarati student who came from USA to learn Sanskrit. He met my brother, and my brother asked him why learning Sanskrit. He was doing biotech in USA. So the head of the department told him, go back, learn Sanskrit, then come back. Because to learn biotech, you have to have the knowledge of Sanskrit because our scriptures have all that knowledge. But we simply, when somebody says, we laugh. I don't claim that I know scriptures. I don't claim I, metallurgy person. I am not claiming that I have got Ayurveda recipes with me, but I had a book which was given to me by my grandfather, which had wonderful recipes for various diseases. Now, unless we respect that that knowledge and go back to it and try to actually let the knowledge is real, not some hocus pocus. When allopathy people simply attack you, saying that who are you when you talk about these things, you have no knowledge. In COVID, most of the people who survived in India survived because we are Ayurvedic kadas. So every area had this particular recipe where you boiled over those medicinal plants and took them, but they were treated as hoax. But we did survive, didn't we? If you look at a population where we were told that 50 million people will die, but we didn't die. Everybody didn't have access to vaccine. Everybody was not living in cities. So these are some fascinating things that should give us an idea that how much is yet to be discovered about our knowledge, about our history, and our ancient practices.
Yes.
You did mention about Nalanda. While Nalanda itself was burnt by Bakhtiyar Khilji, turns out they had smartly kept a copy of all the books in Tibet in Dharamshala. So
I don't know whether all, yes, but whether all or some, we don't
So
know.
all of
Because
not,
people who carried the books,
traditions were there. Traditions always carried them. So not
yeah,
just
because they carried the books to China all the way. We know that many people came, sacrificed their lives carrying those manuscripts to China through the difficult terrain of Himalaya. We know that. But whichever is left, it's so huge even now. There are some millions of manuscripts still with us, which have not even been digitized so far. So much is to be, learned, and so much is to be yet understood.
I'm just going to quickly connect all the thoughts here. Nick, you just brought up Lothal, the port in Gujarat, which made ships and boats. Um, Interestingly, Prime Minister Modi has made an effort to preserve Lothal and make it a national maritime heritage complex. I haven't been there, but Dr. Ratan Sharda has some experience of Lothal, and
No,
it's
not really, but there is a huge digital exhibition coming up in Lothal, state-of-art exhibition. And even if you look at a water preservation system, the famous Baolis of Rajasthan and Ahmedabad, the kind of geometry they have, the kind of science they have, the way they harvested the water when Saraswati started drying up, all that areas have such beautiful, fascinating water preservation systems. And British said these ponds have been covered. Our own builders said, what's a useless place? We have to cover those ponds. But those were actually lifelines of those areas. We didn't depend on monsoon all the time. We didn't depend on some dam somewhere. We had local water preservation systems. So everywhere we have tapped the nature in a very different way. And that is the reason we worship nature. We don't worship nature because we are some kind of orthodox people who have some rituals. We worship them because we are part of the nature. We never thought we'll conquer the nature. We said we live with the nature because she is mother nature. So approach to the humanity, approach to nature, so what was scientific became spiritual. So we continuously respect it. And that was the idea. Idea was not to idolize everything. Idea was to create a kind of spiritual aura around those things. So you respect that though our resources, respected our entire ecosystem of the nature. That is how we survived. And if you're talking about experiences, there is Tibetan doctors still in Dharamshala and some places who I went there and they took they took urine in a pot and they smell it. They put a stick around it. They're able to tell you what is wrong with you. Now, so years and years of preserving this knowledge, understanding the knowledge goes on and on, and that is why allopathy is to respect Ayurveda, and they will research and give it back to you as a herbal medicine. No, it's an Ayurveda medicine. So that is where our patents, which we never asked for, our IPR, which we never asked for. I, in fact, once said jokingly, if we start demanding royalty for our IPRs, the entire West would go bankrupt.
Yes.
Great. I know in one of the posts that Nick Collins had, he actually made an assertion that Buddhism was spread to China and Japan by sea. And here I am thinking it went across the mountains and land.
Both ways, I would say.
What gives?
I think it went both ways.
See, the first monk from Kerala actually went by Himalayas.
Yeah.
And some of the people from China who came to take back the manuscripts, they also came from Himalayas. Yes, trade was very important. That is how our religion reached China. So we have temples of our mandirs of our ancient Hindu gods even in China, because that's what went with the traders and merchants.
You refer definitely to the great, amazing Bodhidharma,
Yes,
the prince in Telangana, Kerala region, who was around 7 foot tall, and he was built like an amazing warrior, who was one of the 5 devotees of Bodhisattva, and then made his pilgrimage up north and actually inaugurated or set up the Shaolin Temple, which is still alive, the longest martial arts temple out there in China. But Nick, I won't let you go because you said something about Buddhism by sea.
Yeah, I mean, it went both ways. Obviously, I think if you go to Japan and a place called Yoshino, you'll see that how Buddhism in the 8th century was transported across the sea from China, and the great Buddhist temples were erected in in the sacred mountain scenery around Yoshino. It's a fascinating place. So I suppose in the back of my mind, I was thinking across the sea from China, but I think it came both ways. Yeah.
Okay.
But I like to emphasize the sea because it's my speciality, right?
Thank you. Increasingly, there is a lot of focus on the maritime coast of India that holds the clue to how our ancient people survived. Our north had obviously inhospitable terrain, except this place called Khyber Pass. That's where things initially traded, and then also it was an Achilles heel for us. But most of the ancient traditions that Dr. Sharda refers to, the folk tradition, the coastal tradition, the ones that are in the mountains in that region in the south of India, those traditions were preserved mainly with folklores related to the sea, because that is where people found their food and their livelihood.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. We see Mr. Cohen here. Michael, do you have anything?
I think moderator should, Adit, we have a session 5, the last session. Where is the moderator?
Yeah, we're getting ready for that. Yeah, Adi stepped away for a second, so we're getting ready. So we're just letting this very interesting conversation play out.
Sure.
And then I'll ask one simple question for the panel. It's kind of a go away question, and just simply. So I've listened to all the information. Again, as I say, I'm a student and I continue to learn, and I definitely acknowledge that a lot of this stuff I did not know. So I'm always quick to acknowledge that. But the question I have to you is, if you could answer it going around quickly. We're looking at expanding this, right? We say, why? Why are colonies lost? It's the basic question that we asked and you addressed. But moving forward with the youth, right? The younger generation, high school, college, how are we going to make it found, right? How are we going to make this information palpable to them, right? Big question, but just maybe one sentence of how.
I think social media has got a big part to play. I think it's already playing a big part in this general conversation that's not filtering down to school level. That's the biggest factor, I think.
That's great insight, and that's why we're doing what we do with the Sattology effort, is to get out there and get to the schools, because again, they're not going to come flocking to us unless we're cool on TikTok. So I don't think any of you want to do any cool dances to appeal to our TikTok crowd. Anybody else quick thoughts on that before we segue over to the next panel?
Yeah, make it interesting, make it engaging, make it such that people are curious. Don't make it too difficult, but make it such that it's close to where their mental space is, and draw them closer to figuring the more complex questions. So it's got to be simple first. Why am I here? Why am I the way I am? Why are my parents the way they are? And then slowly build that out.
See, I would say that as far as Western people are concerned, whether they're Hindus or blacks or natives, they get strength from how Hindus survived. But all of them cannot come to India. But those in India, because that is where the base is, and we people are fascinated more by the West, not anymore, by the way, but till this time, that we just have to take our children to the ancient temples of medieval temples of Hoysalas, and to Hampi, and to Ellora, and to the Kailasa temple, where they will be fascinated when they're taught what this is, that we had this entire architectural strength and many other things, which will then they will go back. We can't simply talk of Taj all the time. So we don't even know what wealth we have. We have more tourists to those places like Taj than to Ellora. When I ask people, they're surprised they haven't gone there. I asked about Hampi, not many people have gone there. There's so much of wealth that we can't even actually value that. It is like, living in a sea of wealth, and you don't understand the value of that wealth. And that is where the young can simply go, and they are simply to be exposed to what we already have. You go to Konark and you are fascinated, but how many people go to Konark? It's pitiable number. So it begins from, like Modi ji said, begin with local domestic tourism as far as we are concerned, and we are able to create that kind of good infrastructure, good mindset, where foreigners will feel like coming to India and understanding, how this civilization is built, and then we start respecting. And I think, unfortunately, the other civilizations, the ancient traditions and culture, don't have much of that left. But whatever elders have, if they are put on record, I heard a very wonderful black guru of that tribe in Africa who described a state of meditation, which is very similar to what Shankaracharya felt when he went into Samadhi. So the similarities of ancient traditions, if they are brought together, then every young person would feel that there is something in us which has kept us alive, which has changed the human history, because these noble thoughts. Unfortunately, when Buddhism was ruling the Afghan area and the entire belt from India, because it was totally non-violent. When they were attacked by the Islamic hordes, they were reciting mantras. No, God don't come and protect you. God's give you strength to protect yourself. That was lost in somewhere in the translation. So we have to learn from that to preserve a civilization, you have to pay a price, and you have to work hard for it. When the world around you is very satanic and very violent, you cannot speak about your non-violence to a few people, because you have to preserve yourself before you start telling what's right, what's wrong.
Shardaji, somewhere I heard we need to first understand what to protect. That's the first step. Once you understood that, the second step is protect what you just understood.
So, Karen, your last thought?
And disseminate it. I would say disseminate it.
Yeah.
Unless you disseminate this beauty to our younger generation,
Mhm.
how do they really realize the wealth of strength that we had? They will not. They will still look at us, look at the bullock carts, look at the garbage around us, and say, "Oh, we are nothing." But how did we come to that place? That is to be understood. And then you can say, "Okay, I'll go back to that strength we had." You go to some villages are so clean, but there are villages who are very dirty. Why they are clean? Those who are clean, because somewhere that habits are continued. We had this idea of Shauch, the cleanliness, which kept villages, which kept our cities very clean. You look at the civilization, the Saraswati civilization, where we had toilets in those times. We had
Covered toilets.
covered toilets, and this entire wonderful way of hygiene and health we lost, and we don't want to remember that. So once you take to the young people there, they realize that what kind of science we had. So that is how you slowly rebuild your civilization.
Richard, can I add one line here? Since it's a closing remark. So I would say in the era of war, when we don't need war, the United Nations has become totally not relevant. Hand it over to the women and the children population of the world, because women have never created any war. And children, if they take over as the ambassador of the United Nations instead of old men, definitely there will be a more coexistence, more feel of entitlement and power, and then you will see a very different world coming from the United Nations. That will be my recommendation to the entire globe. Yeah, thanks.
No, I appreciate everybody's insight on that. And again, I know that was a big question. I'll go to Karen since she didn't get a chance to speak. We're still waiting on Adi. So again, big question with a short answer. And Sharad, great answer in a very concise way. But go ahead, Karen.
You wanted me to ask another question? Is that what you were saying?
No, just basically finish it up with how do we get to the youth?
Oh, how do we get to the youth? I would love to have. I was thinking another book for Adi. Adi to go and interview these, these elderly people that have the traditions and the gurus that could teach us all the things, so that we have that recorded, and then the youth can access that. I just think that is so vital, just like we did with Holocaust survivors, and we have their stories from their own voice. I think it would be a beautiful thing. In fact, I'm thinking, who can we talk to make this happen?
Adi's the man. We'll definitely work together and make that happen. Everybody, thank you for being on this panel. We're going to segue to our next one. So if you're not on the next one, you can go ahead and drop out. So the next one, we're going to be finishing up our 2-day oversight, is going to be what makes you intelligent? Okay, so very simple question with a very complex, lot of response to go with it.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you, Nick, for your insight, and you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, and you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick, for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so here we are at our last discussion. Thank you for those that have been with us from the duration of starting yesterday. Thank you for those that have come and gone, and thank you for those that are supporting us by blitzing us out there. So a lot of appreciation goes out to everybody out there in the whole World Wide Web. So we appreciate that. Again, look us up, Sattology, the study of truth. As you see here, we're bringing people together with different ideas, different concepts, but all we have in common is trying to make life better for humankind, not in any one spot, but on a global nature. So that's our goal, and we'll continue to do that. So try to support us any way you can. People are on this broadcast. As you see, there's lots of prominent people giving their time, and their time is valuable. So we appreciate that they're giving that time to us on the weekend, beyond their businesses, their studies, their academics, their book writing, their touring and doing all this kind of stuff. So again, our thanks goes out to all the people that made this possible. So now we're back to the table again. What makes you intelligent? So we sort of had a kind of discussion before, and what always amuses me when I do these 2 days and being involved, immersed in it, is that everything kind of goes full circle. We have different topics and we're creative on topics, and they all kind of come back to the same thing, right? The core of what our essence is, and then how we evolve. So we'll go to Adi and we'll let him start the foundation with, we need that. And again, for our new viewers and those who are new to the concept of what is intelligent? Most people get confused with the interchanging words, especially in Western society, especially on TV shows and posters and fortune cookies. People throw the word intelligent around with no real understanding of the actual meaning. So start us out with that.
So there is interesting in saying in Bhagavad Gita, evam bhute param. So iti guye tamam shastram iti mukya maya naga etad buddhiman syat kriti krityasya bharat. So the real essence of intelligence is never discussed nowadays. The intelligence is discussed like if you can do number crunching and the IQ tests. IQ tests are not a barometer of intelligence, by the way. IQ test just shows that how much fast you can assimilate and how fast you can turn it out. And so wrong barometers of intelligence have been chosen. In fact, a person who knows the value of life and come out of the cycle of repeated birth and death is called intelligent by the most intelligent people of the world. And rest of the people who are just trying to make problem solving engineering feats, engineering equations, mathematical equations. I mean, those are not considered intelligent in the real sense of the word. Because when we lose the purpose, then we are really not being intelligent. So most of the current definition of intelligence actually is not intelligence at all. So I think we need to think deeply in what makes us intelligent, and I think that's where we need to go. And I will bring a lot of references here. Why? Who was called intelligent at what point of time in the history? Now, going back to a couple of million years back in Treta Yuga, and and somebody asked me the definition of Yuga. By the way, I tell you that there is a cyclical age: Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga. It's not what Hindus believe, like what the European scholars will say. This is what the Hindus think about it. No, every age has a calculation mechanism, and this is the most scientific calculation mechanism in terms of yoga. Now these yugas are calculated based on the values and virtues. So as the virtues decline, we go into a lower age. Now today everyone will agree with me that virtues are lowest ever in the recorded history or seen history. Now I'm going back to this history which is not yet seen nor spoken in the world. So if I see those ages and coming now today's age, then yes, our intelligence is going down. We are becoming more rudimentary and we are becoming more basic. So the reason why I say that, because you can see around you people who are there 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we think now they are having a very happy life, except Europeans because they were fighting. If you go 300 years ago, then also you'll say that they were having a better form of life than today. Because today the anxieties are very high. Small children are committing suicide, which is a sorry state for the society. People are living hopelessly. People are living, first you lose hope and then you lose your home. It's a sequence. So people have no hope for the future. That's where society is going down. So the intelligence of the society, of the individual is definitely, and we can see that in the number of hospitals being, the number of mental diseases being spread. In fact, I was reading one report, American report, saying that the mental disease will be the number one disease in USA in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years. So, what makes us intelligent, or what can make us intelligent, is that we need to discuss that more, and then we can find out the answers to it. First, we define the problem, then we can have the solution.
Great insight. Mr. Mohan, you have anything to add to that, please?
Yeah. So, intelligence. What makes you intelligent? Well, I am not intelligent in that perspective, but what is intelligence, that I can answer. Most of the time, as Aditya mentioned, that it's not the academic education that makes you intelligent, or number crunching and all those things, which I also agree to that. If you see the ancient Indian text, and I bring ancient because I have a study on that, intelligence is viewed as a multi-dimensional quality that goes beyond mere intellectual ability. And this includes your emotional, spiritual, and practical aspects. These three. And in Bhagavad Gita, as Aditya mentioned, there is something called Sthita Prayagna, right? If I'm pronouncing it correctly,
Sit
Sthita,
pragya. Sit pragya.
Sthita Pragya. An emotional, stable person who maintains equanimity in pleasure and pain is free from attachment, fear, and anger, and acts out of the duty without worrying about the results. The concept closely matches to the modern ideas about emotional intelligence, self awareness, emotional control, and rational action. And Krishna teaches that a calm and a tranquil mind leads to a lasting wisdom. Similarly, Vedas and Upanishad also mention about pragna. So, what is intelligence, right? Again, we talk about the soul, the Atman, and the Atman. So, in Sanatan, it's not the acquired skill, right, which you can get from your school or teacher. Because if that was what intelligence is, then what we will call about the artificial machine intelligence, animal intelligence, society intelligence, everywhere, every particular pattern of doing something, we call it as intelligence, right? So unless and until there is a karuna, there is a spiritual angle, there is a practical aspect, means you have felt it, right? And that is what will all get into something called intelligence. And then we'll talk about the atman, which is the existence knowledge, Sat Chitanand, which is the existence, knowledge, and bliss, the pure Anand. If you acquired that, you are intelligent. Otherwise, we are no one right now in that journey. We are still a student. Yes, Aditya.
Great insight. So you brought up a couple of times, which was actually the next question and the way I was going to bring us, since we had the last conversation and we didn't touch upon it. Emotional intelligence, right? That's part of the intelligence. What role does it play? Do we feel that the individuals of today are suffering from a low emotional intelligence? Is it taught in schools? Is it taught at home? Is it something you acquire? Right. So that there's always the buzz about that. You know, people are always jumping on the EI. It's almost like the equivalent to AI. Let's talk about emotional intelligence. So let's cut through to some basic facts, right? What is the side of emotional intelligence? How does it play? And how, if we're emotionally low in intelligence, how can we kind of boost it up?
Richard, yes. See, there is a IQ, EQ, SQ, and YQ nowadays. YQ is yoga quotient, IQ is intelligence quotient, EQ is emotional quotient, and SQ is spiritual quotient. Everyone has made quotients. Now, quotient is a fraction. Everybody knows that. Now, we are talking about fractional intelligence. How is it possible? So, coming to the point of EQ, believe me, now these are all concepts in the West. I mean, you cannot divide a human, and the super specialization in the Western academics by Western academics has resulted in so much anxiety. Actually, I mean, a human is a human at the end of the day. A human being has emotions. Human being has intelligence. Human being has spirituality, and human being has YQ is I added yoga quotient actually is a spiritual being. Now you cannot see a human being into from multiple lenses and focus on one lens. You know, we need to talk about integrated comprehensive development of one human being. Like when talk about human development is like a comprehensive development You cannot separate the intelligence out, the emotions out. Mostly in the West, we talk about that. Now, even not even West, we okay. Let's go to the villages in Mexico or India or anywhere else. We are looking at a holistic development, like complete development of a human being. Complete. A human being needs emotions to be mentally stable, needs intelligence to make wise decisions, needs spirituality to function coherently, needs yoga, spirituality to develop personally, remove the faults. So when we talk about a human being, we talk about everything in one package. Now we cannot separate EQ out of it because now EQ is taught to people who don't have EQ, like they're cold people. They can't relate with people, and it has a lot to do with development or growth in the childhood. When the grandparents are not treating you well, that time you develop emotional problems. Or your mother and father did not treat you well, that time you develop emotional problems. And so blaming a child or individual of lacking emotional quotient, we should also blame the society which broke up the families, because it's not the parent and the it's not just the parents who teach the child, it's the grandparents who teach the child. Grandparents teach about the culture. So parents, children who have grandparents, they're emotionally stable. Children who have both parents together, even they may not be together, uh, at least they're there, those children become emotionally stable also. So it's not a function of teaching somebody in a classroom how to develop emotional quotient. Obviously, classes do help to some extent, but the guy is or a person is going to fall back into the old nature. So the 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 problem with the emotional quotient is it has not been defined yet, and people don't want to take responsibility. You know, when the religious institutions want to break up your family, then how can you save your family? And they teach you that the okay, in the name of whatever ism, then you don't need somebody, then obviously there will be a problem. And that's what we are experiencing today, that we have emotionless people trying to run corporations, and those guys are cold towards the other people because they never had the happiness of living in a joint families today, like with the grandparents, grandfather, with a husband wife, with a mother father, that we have not seen yet. So the problem is not just social, the problem is religious as well.
Great, man. Go ahead, Sharat. You look,
Yes. Okay. So developing an intellect means questioning, reasoning, and making judgments independently. The mind is considered an instrument for awareness, comprehension, knowledge, insight, memory, reflection, desire, control. Knowledge is seen as an inherent attribute of the mind which must be cultivated through learning and experience. So, in a nutshell, in the Hindu philosophy, the true intelligence combines rational wisdom, self-control, emotional stability, and spiritual insight, all guiding one toward the right action and higher understanding. And how to achieve this, right? He mentioned about Aditya mentioned about the young minds and the family setup, and uh, the one solution could be, again, one has to relate. I'm just mentioning from Sanatan perspective, Yagyopavit, Sadguru Diksha, and Sadguru's Anusran, meaning you need to do certain rituals, you need to have a guru, a teacher, and you should follow your teacher. This is the path of realizing the full potential of an individual and all round integrated development in a fully positive direction. And for that, there are three dimensions. One is called yajan, which is called sacrifice. Another is called yajan, which is called dedication. and there is something called istadharya, which is called your living ideals, your full interest, right? So these are the three dimensions which will help into you becoming uh, I would say on the path of intelligence. Otherwise, if you see the modern science, right, we know that the brain is the most vital organ of a human body because it is intelligent. But now the new research scientists are saying no, it's not a brain. The second brain is your gut biome. Your trillions of bacteria sits in the gut, which decides the way you eat, the way you do things. So we are still bounded by the physical entity, not the chetana. That's where the intelligence comes in. That will be my say in this round.
Great answers and just very good explanation. And again, this is what's lacking. People are not getting this education and they're not understanding fully. So there's a full understanding, help people get closer to being a more complete person. That always becomes the question, and it goes back and forth. Where knowledge doesn't make you a person, it doesn't make you intelligent. So the question I have is exploring this a little further. Based on having intelligence, right? We all know people are intelligent, but does integrity play a role? Right? There's integrity, especially if you look at the corporate world. You have people who are intelligent by definition, but if they lack integrity, or does integrity guide you through your life? Is that essential or important?
First of all, I would like to talk about the integrity is also very misunderstood concept. Integrity. Now, integrity is actually being true to yourself and 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 delivering a value which is true to yourself, which is integrity. And it's like when your integrity is low, your character is meaningless. So if the character is lost, integrity can still be redeemed, but the integrity is lost, everything else is gone. Now the uh, back to one last word, I catch on to words, and then first of all, to Sharadji's point, you know, any Sanskrit word, no translation into English language, even though the English language has come from Sanskrit through Latin. But still, there is a vast difference because of the usage. So, yajan doesn't mean yajan, yajan, patan, patan, dana, kriya. So, yajan doesn't mean sacrifice because sacrifice has been mistaken and misconstrued in the English word significantly. They have often connected to human sacrifice also. Now coming to the integrity, actually. Now, how can you be integrity? How can you have integrity when you don't know the simple basics of life? Simple basics of life are connected to your own real self, which is you are the soul, and you possess intelligence, you possess mental capacity, you have a mind, and you have a body. But the owner is somewhere else. So when you start identifying the original question, who is the owner of your mind, intelligence, and body? And when you answer that question, that's where the integrity starts at a very deep level. This is where the ancient cultures come into play. They did not teach people how to be an engineer or a doctor if the person doesn't know who is he. First of all, who am I? And that's where it starts. When you get the answer to that question, then that person can adopt any skill, that person will be successful because he doesn't have to be taught to be confident in front of other people because he is confident in front of himself. And that's where the integrity begins. And when people do not teach these definitions to their children, then the child may have the most confident communication, but that child will fail when he is faced with the most serious problem because the integrity definition was itself shallow in the first place. But when you teach your children, Brahmasmi, I'm the spirit soul every day, then that child will grow up to be a very strong person in case of the worst issues. The worst problems come to the strongest people, not to the weakest people. Because for the weak people, a simple button in a shirt can throw them off. If the button is missing, they can't go anywhere. It's gone. But to the strong people, the challenges are given and the challenges are taken as well. So integrity, we have to again go back to the core basics, how to develop integrity. And that's where we need to focus on the original definitions.
Appreciate that insight. Suraji?
Yes. See, integrity and intelligence are both valuable traits, but integrity is often regarded as more fundamental and essentially is very special in leadership and ethical context. Whereas intelligence, as we discussed earlier, it refers to your cognitive abilities like your knowledge, your analytical skills, your problem solving. But integrity brings honesty, moral values, and consistency of character. And this is what it is needed to be built. I mean, I'm just quoting Warren Buffett. He says that intelligence, energy, and integrity are the three traits he seeks in people, emphasizing that without integrity, intelligence and energy are meaningless and potential harmful. So you see from the leader what integrity means. It involves a very high ethical standard, honesty, truth, trustworthiness, whereas intelligence includes both. Even a terrorists are intelligent. They know how to harm people. But when it comes to integrity, they don't have integrity. They are against humanity. So that's my take on that. Um, we have to even in a life, right? A person, there are many people, mostly the people who are on the wrong side of righteousness, the evil mind. They're always seen as very sharp, very intelligent, very witty, but when it comes to integrity, they lack. So this is the difference which we have to make the younger generation understand, that integrity is the key for making them a human. Because out of 84 lakh yoni, 84 lakh yonis, you got a life of a human being, which will eventually, if you do your karmas well, lead to moksha. That is something we should treasure, irrespective of religion. Whether so that's my say. Yes,
I
Aditya.
appreciate your thoughts there. And again, both of you are very good at clarifying it. Again, giving the definitions and then helping people understand. You both mentioned, which we know is a fact, the family tree, grandparents, parents in the home is definitely going to give you the advantages in life. But the reality is, looking at the West, looking throughout the world at this time, there's not always grandparents in the home. There's not even two parents in the home in a lot of cases. And then, of course, you have people who have no parents. So you have the tier structure of not having that solid foundation in the home to teach you things as integrity and to help you develop and teach you culture and how to behave in society. So the question becomes, how or does a person, are they able to come from this environment and then change, right? They don't have the tools, 3, 4 years old, being nurtured and taught. And they've done the studies, which you're all familiar with monkeys. One's a hugged and one's a not. And it's dramatically different in the monkey's life and how they behave. So, of course, it's the same way with humans. If you weren't hugged or tended to, you're going to have a little bit different approach on life. So how do we help the next generation of young people, even adults? There's some adults that are dealing with this now. They say, oh, it's my mother's fault, and there's some truth to that. So how do we help those people out there that don't have the structure and the foundation to start life with?
Actually, the problem is in our school curriculums, actually, because we cannot overthrow a system which we have created over the years. And not everybody can afford nowadays a private education also. Both ways the problem is. To make it practical, I think we need to start working on the school side. First of all, in the society, it is not the school's responsibility to bring up your child, number one. It is a parent's responsibility. People who produce that child must be held responsible for bringing up the child, number one. Number two, the concept of larger family needs to be promoted and incentivized in the US and in other countries as well. That it should be collective family responsibility for growing up a child. oftentimes, in the name of nuclear families, to protect the wealth or to increase the wealth, we ignore the extended family, and we use school as a place to grow up our child. Most of the times, we send children to school in not in all the families, but in some families, so that children can learn some values, and that is the worst thing. Number one, values are universal. Values are not pertaining to any religion. Values pertain to dharma, which is universal set of duties. And schools cannot teach you values. They're not supposed to teach you values.
Correct.
They're supposed to indoctrinate you, to bring you to the point which everybody needs to be part of it. Schools are not supposed to judge you, nor indoctrinate you. Schools are supposed to help you learn some concepts which you cannot learn within the house. That's the only purpose of the school. But oftentimes people use schools as a way to gain time from the children. Okay, child is there, I can do something else. And now we have left our child to a suicide center, actually. Spiritual suicide, values suicide, and everything else. Because the teachers over there, they're working for money, not for giving values to your kids. That's the job for them. And as soon as they finish the job, they can tell you either you're good or bad, or if you're not good or bad, you have ADHD. Go to a doctor, take some pills. Yeah, so it was never about the performance of the kid or value to the kid. And I know it's very hard to hear for some people, but that's truth. I mean, you can check it out in your own experience what teachers did. And some teachers are really good also. I must say that. I've had a fortune of being some very good teachers. So now we need to really think about it, that how we can make our schools just a place of information, not the value, not the not judge you. Every child is unique, every child is special. But to give you an information which you can go back home and verify from your parents, was that right or wrong? School should not be telling you what is right or wrong. It's the parents must tell you what is right or wrong. So that now when you discuss with your parents and they tell you what is right or wrong, the child gets it. Yes, this is the right path. Because the first teachers for a child are mother and father. No one can replace, no one can take their position. I think that primacy, when we bring to the school system, that's where it starts changing the game.
Very interesting observation, Aditya ji. So, two things. If you come from a Sanatan background, there is a saying, and if you believe in rebirth and not one life cycle, there is a saying that the kid you get is based on your past karmas. So if your past karma was not, say, punished because you did something to somebody wrong, you will get in the form of a child who will give you some kind of a problem in this life. That's one of the saying. So you do get a child from your based on your karma. That's said. Again, there are multiple things which is said. If you don't believe in Sanatan text, if you're a very scientific and so-called rational person, till the umbilical cord of mother and child is separated, there are a lot of genetic behavior disorder, good or bad, is passed to the child. And child, even in medical science, they will ask about the parents' history to come to the conclusion. Even modern science asks that very important question. So there is a relationship between the child's behavior and what parents pass them, how parents are. Society can change them to a great extent, and that is where Aditya is referring to the education system. The current education system is only preparing zombies to mug up tons and tons of knowledge, go and vomit on the paper, become a scholar, and get some job. It is very industry driven approach. It's not a human building aspect. And even in Western society, and we have been hearing about the Indian society, and we have a Gurukulam concept. And before that, I had mentioned about the Yagopit and on the Guru and Sadguru and all those things. Even if you go to the Western way of living, Elon Musk, and I will just read that one part here. Elon Musk had created a program called Ad Astra. Ad Astra is a program which he created for his own child, where he he's definitely seen as a front end of a Western society, somebody, a role model, right? Not political aspect. I'm talking about his scientific achievement. This guy started with a STEM education for his young kids without sending them to school. Then he emphasized on education which gives you a hands-on experience, project based learning, critical thinking, okay, and very important part, real world problem solving. Real world problem solving, this is what our ancient Gurukulam used to do. This is where Arjuna got all this skill from Dronacharya on real world problem. This is where Sri Rama got from Vishwamitra, where he first time at the young age of, I think, 14 or something, he went and killed the first demon. So that real age problem solving is something which is missing from the school. And this is what our education system, whether from ancient time or from a new modern time, should should build in their curriculum. Yeah.
Great points and great follow up to Dite's statements. And that makes me think when you said that there's a common statement amongst all cultures and religions that the son will bear the sins of the father. So everybody kind of believes that, and so that leads me to the question. And again, Adi, you spoke a lot on this, and so you can definitely shed some insight. So now you're bearing the sins of your father, or your karma, as it's called. Are you destined to live that life of misery based on past experiences?
Actually, there is no permanent hell. There is no permanent heaven. By the way, it is surprise to everybody. So there is nobody is condemned to hell for life, eternity. And anyone who says that must be really stupid. And nobody is condemned to heaven for eternity. The Sanskrit word says, "A Brahma Bhavana Loka Punaravartin Arjuna." Whether you go from the highest of the heaven, it will come down based on your karma. So there is no permanent hell, there is no permanent heaven. So everyone should relax and be happy. Okay, you're not eternally condemned to happiness as well as condemned to unhappiness. Because the person who is managing you wants to make you happy, by the way, but not in a way that you want to be happy. So, coming to the point, actually, the concept of karma is the most misunderstood concept in the Western world. That's why I wrote the book Karma is a Bitch, and that's an American slang, by the way. So, but inside is full science of karma. Karma just means action, and like blinking of an eye is an action. So it just means action, nothing more than that, nothing less than that also. So when you do good karma, then it is bound to get you good results. But when you do bad karma, you are bound to get bad results. May not today, but maybe much later down the line. But everyone can become free from the karma. And it's the only thing which can be removed, by the way. Everything else stays. Time stays, Atma stays, Prakriti stays, the nature stays, and Paramatma stays. But karma is something which can be changed. So nobody is condemned to rot in hell because of their karma for eternity. They just need to correct themselves and come out of it. So karma as a concept is a relieving concept. So that yes, I can stop my bad karma and be happy. And the worst thing is that it's often used to in a negative way in the society. Somebody is going to get you karma. Very wrong statement, because that act of speaking itself was a bad karma, by the way. So what the way we need to understand is, just like you breathe, you blink your eyes, or somebody is lying on the bed, that person is also doing the karma because he's breathing still. So the way society uses the word karma and the way the karma is two different things. Now there is a higher version of karma called karma yoga. Through your actions and dedication to Yogeshwar, you can become free of karma. And that's also called yoga. That's also called bhakti. That's also called living a life. And in fact, when the world was created, the first instruction was given, Yogastha Kuru Karmani. So do your actions as per yoga. Yogastha Kuru Karmani. So that's why we got to understand it properly, and we have classes and programs for that. It's on our window where you can join these Gurukul courses and learn properly so that you don't curse others and also yourself.
Thank you. Shiraji?
Okay, yeah. So I would say that the kids of today, as I mentioned yesterday, in the to know themselves, they should come out of the, or anyone, not only kids, even adults, come out of your self-created or technology-created balloon, and don't be don't do bhakti, not bhakti in not the real spiritual way. Don't do bhakti of artificial intelligence, especially to the alpha and the Gen Z population, and be slave of that, because that's going to keep you in the bubble. And as I kept on saying yesterday, nothing grows inside the bubble. You are just a part of the cage. Break that cage, and that could be only broken through your definitely, you need to have intelligence, then followed by integrity, and connect with your creator. Connect with your creator. That will keep you on the righteous path, so that you, with all your intelligence, you still do things for the humanity, for the larger interest. That will be my message.
Excellent. Alrighty, as we're running to the end of our Sattology International Lit Fest 2025 and this panel, any last thoughts on this panel?
No, I think thank you all the viewers who are watching across the stream, and I think we all will come together behind the screen also. And thank you for all the viewers who are watching, and thank you Sharaji and all the participating channels we had who made this stream big for everybody. And next year we'll be back in physical location and also online. Now we have tasted this part also. Now we'll continue both of them so simultaneously, so that we make it accessible to all. And I think do join us next year in bigger numbers and do support us. We need your help. We need your support. You can join learnthingsshare.com. You can support through gamingcipher.com. You can support Sanity GP Bonita, Sanity Bonita. And also, so all these places you can approach us. You can join our Sattology education programs, which are 7 days a week. And across the world, our Gurukuls are very popular now, getting popular day by day. And so you can join them, and we can show you how you can make your life better using ancient knowledge system of the world.
Thank you.
Also, look out for retreats also in Mexico, in India, in other parts of the world, and we want you to join, sign up in advance so that we can book things, and you'll. I can guarantee you one thing: you'll get the Sattology experience. We have set up that quality.
Shiraji, thoughts?
Yes, it was a great session. So many thanks to all the panelists, especially people who woke up 3 a.m., 2 a.m. in India, like Ratan Sharda ji, Dr. Ankit Shah ji, and all the panelists in US, and Nick and Richard, you, the way you moderated for last 2 days, unthankable job. But you stood, you had to digest so many topics which was new to you, make notes, and then conclude. It's phenomenal job. It's not an easy job. I know that it's very, very tough. And Aditya, it's always a great thing. Sanatan Jhanda आप ऊपर रखिए इसी तरह से. And for the viewers, please come and join Sattology movement in a big way. We need 1 million viewership and subscribers, so that more work and more effective work could be done. That will be my
No, so certainly for 2 days, I mean, 2 days, so those of you who watch our American Panchayat, Sharaji and I know each other for many, many years, I mean, many decades actually, at least 2 decades, you can say. And the way he has stood by for last 2 days and many other events also, from the first Sattology event to now, this is the 6th one. So thank you very much, Sharaji. He has his own channel, Golgappe, and also many other things he does. So do stay connected with him as well for his program. But he is part of the Sattology family, by the way.
Yes, again, thank you to everybody. And this is just our annual event, but we're doing stuff all the time. Like Adi said, the goal is to reach people, to make changes. We're not just talking. Everybody's here talking, but everybody in the Sattology family is about making active changes. So that's the difference. So join us if you're a change maker, and we're going to make changes together. So again, thank you for your time, your contributions, and we'll see you soon. We're out there. We're doing lots of good work out there. And
If you stay, they're coming in the studio as well. Okay.
And Aditya, if you want to close this session, have some Gita prayer. Any prayer you want to end?
Yes, we are coming there and we are doing it.
Okay, great. Okay, fine.
Hold on.
He's going to transport.
Should I drop? Is it okay? Or
he's coming. We're doing the real world transport. He's running.
Okay.
He's running. So we're in the garage. He's in the other room. That's the high tech side of it. So we didn't get the transport down yet. We're still back to basic. He ran over here.
Yes. So we have.
Yes.
We have two.
Where is Govin, Riley, and the kids? Oh, hi.
Radhe is coming.
Khalid's been behind the scenes the whole time. Jackie as well.
So thank you all. So we have a team, and also for all the viewers, we also have many people behind the scenes.
Oh, why they?
Including Sri Narsimhan and Vibhuti Jha, Desh Kapoor, and lot of people from India, our Sattology Gurukul students. Amazing team. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Namaste. And I'll say one shloka, Narayanam Namaskritya, Dharam Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswatim Vyasam, Guru Jayamudiraye. So with that, it's the first shloka of Mahabharata. Everybody can read that. And we end this show and this program 2 days. And next year we'll be back with a bigger bang and better experience. Namaste.
Namaste. Hey.